This is about small businesses putting the customer first. It is a particularly interesting perspective for in the room as marketers. There's a number of people who are actually small business owners as well. In a moment that we find ourselves in from the sort of economic point of view, small business owners are such a critical part of the American economy as well. But actually, I also think of small business owners as being, let me think about, when I think about AI and the conversations that I've been having on Play, of those that within my team or within the company, I'm at the Washington Post, by the way, who are early adopters, who are advocates. It's less about maybe necessarily sort of technical sophistication. It's about sort of mindset, right? It's about the sort of mindset of curiosity. It's our mindset of experimentation, of ambition, of wanting to do things differently. And I see a lot of correlation between that mindset and that of small business owners, actually. And so I thought maybe we should start with the question, or also discussing from your perspective. You head up the small business division at H&R Block. Maybe how you're seeing small business owners adopt and integrate AI currently, and how it's helping them in their businesses. And then we can talk a little bit about, in this moment, advice as well, as we potentially hit some, well, not potentially, I think as we sort of go into moments of economic uncertainty, or advice you can give. And then Jonah, you are a small business owner and have been a large business owner, and the transition between the two. Maybe he tells us a little about Moby and the work we're doing as well. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I'll start by just giving a bit of background. So I'm not a marketeer, I'm a business guy, so forgive me, they've let me join this group. But a bit of background of small businesses in the US. So there are 34 million small businesses in the United States. They're responsible for 50% of the non-governmental employment in the United States, maybe a bit higher in the last few weeks, fortunately. And, the US economy does grow unless small businesses grow. So it's a huge, critical part of the economy. But a small business owner, typical small business, there's no such thing as a true small business, but it can be anything. A marketing agency, a landscaper, a hairdresser, Uber driver. The typical small business is also a consumer. And the line between the struggle we have, I have 2 million small business customers at HR Block. And the line between some of them, are you a consumer, are you a small business, is really, really thick. And, they struggle themselves. They commingle their money. They use one credit card to manage sometimes a $200,000 business and also their personal wealth. And trust me, it makes their taxes pretty insane. To your question about AI and small businesses, my experience as being, I spent a lot of time speaking to this always experience, particularly micro small businesses, is not much. Right? They're very unsophisticated business owners. They're trying to stay afloat. They are missing their kids' sports games on a Sunday because they do bookkeeping. They know this thing, AI, is out there. And, like world consumers, how can it help me? What can I do? But trying to get to engage on that on a daily basis is pretty hard. Once again, talking about the average, I'm sure there are some which are very forward. They're usually AI agents, admins, but pretty unsophisticated.
What's the gap? What is there? Is it accessibility? Is it knowledge? Is it sort of comfort level?
It is knowledge. In fact, I will talk to marketing a little bit. Very few small businesses are doing any kind of sophisticated marketing. So I don't know whether some of you guys have a favorite donut shop or favorite provider, and you go onto their website. Who has seen a website that looks like it was built in 2005 for small business? They're trying to find opening hours. These are little nodding heads. Well, it was built in 2000, and it hasn't been changed. So it's just, they got someone to set that up for them. They're not doing, some of the basics. So, for example, when we talk to small businesses, like, okay, Google is your friend, Cat be your friend. Make sure that opening hours are up to date on Google. Something worse than someone turning up or calling you. I myself don't trust Google. I call them, are you open? I want to come up. My kids will go crazy. You guys are closed. I don't have the donuts that you want. But I'm screwed with that. So I think it's knowledge, time, they're passively time starved. As I said to you, the leadership team of my company has a couple of heads of business units, a CFO, a CMO, a chief legal officer, whom after getting a head of HR. You are all of those things as a small business, literally all of those things, and you haven't been schooled in those. So it's just big.
Hey everyone, Jonah Goodhart. I am totally different background here, entrepreneur, measurement background in digital advertising. So built a company called Mode, sold it to Oracle, worked at Oracle for a handful of years, and started a new AI-powered contextual company called Mobian. A couple of things I think on small business. So first of all, I think when we are told small business, we always think pizza shop, laundromat, donut shop, etc., which of course is inclusive of small businesses. But by the way, according to the Small Business Association, so is everything else up to $40 million in revenue. So, if you run a consulting company, if you run a measurement company that's not yet at 40 million in revenue, you are a small business by definition. So it is inclusive of everything. The other thing I would say is businesses up to, I think it's 400 or 500 people are medium-sized businesses. If you combine those two groups, it's 75% of all private sector employees. All right, it's the vast majority of people in the United States who have a job, period, full stop, represented by those two groups. And I think what we're focused on, I think is a couple of things. One of the things that I think about at this conference with Scott, Scott's a force of nature, a creative mind, I'm not going to do it justice to try to describe him because you can't. You just have to watch him stand up and recite a poem from his heart. But he's a storyteller. And the thing that I always think about at Imaginarium or Saturnalia is that B2B marketing, small business marketing is all storytelling in the same way that B2C marketing is storytelling. And for some reason, we don't always put that label on it, but it is. And so when you think about taxes for small businesses and the idea from H&R Block that taxes are not just a number on the page, that there's some real meaning behind your life and your business. I think about context and I think about relevancy and information and where do we get information and what's trusted and what's not. Our particular focus as a business, I'll give you an example right now. So if you go to the WashingtonPost.com, the top story naturally is about tariffs, is about China's response to the tariffs and the EU's response to the tariffs. The ads that I got, I'm a paid subscriber for the Washington Post. The ads that I got, one is a retargeting ad from Amazon for water that I think my son ordered. And the other is for collared shirts, which if anyone knows me, you know that pretty rare that I've worn collared shirts in 30 years. And so why is that the case? For the most important moment from the Washington Post perspective, they've curated that content, put it on the front page, and have said, everyone that's reading the Washington Post wants to read about this, small businesses, big businesses, everyone else. Why are the ads not relevant at all to the content? Why are they not advice about guidance in a time of uncertainty? And the reason is the reason for our business existing, which is that there's an industry called brand safety, where back in 2017, brands got concerned about the content their ad showed up next to, and they hired predominantly two companies. They spend, as of this year, over $1 billion a year blocking content, including the most important content in the world at the moment, where people are having important conversations. And so we're building AI because we think AI can be useful to better understand context and help marketers actually align their brands with the right content to tell their stories. And so slightly different angle than the customer-centric view of small businesses. But I think of, we own a small hotel in Montauk, and I think it's the same thing in how we storytell as how a company like Oracle storytells.
I just want everyone to know, I didn't ask Jonah to say any of this. It's just, but it is interesting that, the in moments again for small businesses, and B2B marketing in general, people become hyper focused on results, on that lower part of the funnel. They stop thinking about storytelling and they stop thinking about really building relationships with customers, especially in moments of economic turmoil as well. And things like context and things like storytellers who've got out the window. And so when Jonah is sort of building technology that helps even reinforce that further, it's critically important in times like this. Go ahead, Jamil, tell me.
Well, I was just going to add what you were talking about, 75% of, employees in the US between small and medium businesses. And I don't think any big companies have really cracked, maybe Amazon a little bit, they haven't done a great job of how to service small businesses. Like, they're not monolithic. You have an Uber driver and you have someone who has $1 million business, and they're all lumped together into the same thing. So I think it's just a critical thing. Your question on like serving up, you're looking at it and that's you're getting served up. I mean, small businesses are crazed and looking for the tribe of advice. They want advice. What do I do about this? Okay, there's tariffs. What does that mean for me? What practically does that mean for my business? Does that mean I'm going to have fewer people coming in the door in 3 weeks' time? Or does that mean actually, I'm going to be able to get locally sourced materials at a lower price? I like it. But what are those implications? I think they're just really stark on advice. We, just being vulnerable, we don't do a great job. So in my job, I don't do a great job in servicing small businesses. We use a consumer playbook to serve them. We're trying to build now how we actually talk to them in language that matters to them. I think that's where they like to help us in the future, because there's a lot of similarities between it, but they're not monolithic.
And how are you thinking about using AI to help them implement?
Yeah, so it's a bit of a grand plan or work on our 5-year strategy at the moment. But firstly is we had an incredible amount of data on you. We have your tax return. It has everything on it. It has your marketing expense. It has your rate. And we're not using that data. Now because we have so much data on you, it's protected. So we have to get consent to a level that you guys would be driving crazy for every single year. But if we can mine that data, if I could say, hey, your plumber, with it to 10,000 overcomes, you don't spend anything on marketing dollars. The average plumber spends $7,000. If you start spending on marketing, we predict your business will grow by 10%. And this is what the outcome will be for you. Will not be phenomenal. Now that is a bit of a pipe dream I have, and I'm using it with our board at the moment and saying, hey, this is a pipe dream. How do we come alive? Still scratching my head on that one, but we're trying to figure it out. But using that data, I think understanding, so the other key theme of small business is they're lonely. They're super lonely. So if you could speak to 10 other plumbers, that would be amazing. So we can help them speak to 100 of it, or we can use the data to do that. So that's our angle that we're looking at right now.
Trying to build those communities and trying to fill that for shared.
Yeah, well, maybe not the community, but we create the community using data and saying, hey, 100 other plumbers like you are doing this thing, or you're not doing that, or you're doing something that's a bit out of the usual, out of the ordinary. We can show you your P&L. By the way, that's one thing we do with our tax. We show them P&L. They never see the P&L formula. Just very basics. How much money you make, how much you spend. This is your profit. Like, people are, oh, wow.
When you said pipe dream, was a pun? So happy. But then,
You know about outcomes, well, Jenna, we talk about this as well, like trying to change the conversation in media from being about metrics that don't really actually represent true results to being much more outcome based. How are you thinking a little bit more about that, Moby?
I mean, I guess the way that I think about it is outcomes are always the goal. And I think, if you ask a small business or frankly any business, what's the job to be done? They're pretty clear on that. They won't come back to you with a lot of bureaucracy. I mean, I think in a lot of ways the difference between a big company, it was a great experience for me to work at Oracle because I got to see what it's like to work at a big company. And I think it's actually very similar to a small company, it's just with a tremendous amount of bureaucracy and a lot of internal politics and things that come with it. That might take up 70 or 80% of people's time. But the core of it is we want to get something done. We want to deliver on behalf of someone that we're building a product for. And so I think if you ask a small business, it's almost purist. It's like, we want to do a good job for our customers. We want to get more customers. We want to tell our story. We want to be out there in a thoughtful way. And I think, on the AI front, I think it's going to be a huge opportunity for small businesses, just as it is for large businesses, because it's a tool. I think we spent a lot of time sort of pontificating about, is it going to destroy us and is it going to get rid of all jobs? And I think those are valid thought processes, but it is here, it's happening, and none of us are going to change that. And so I think it is absolutely going to be a tool, and I think should be looked at through that lens. In the end of the day, actually, Andrew Bloom said something to me last night that I sort of slept on and I keep thinking about, which is there are some really deep philosophical things with AI, like, will we no longer forget things? And is the idea of, is what makes us human that we actually do have the ability to forget? Is that what allows us to heal when something goes wrong, et cetera? So putting that aside for a second, we'll have to deal with that as a society. I think AI is going to bring a tremendous amount of capabilities to small businesses to do what they know how to do, which is tell their story about why they do a good job. They try to be truthful, they try to be honest, they try to deliver a good customer experience. And, in my mind, it's about, when I read about what HR Block does, it's about being trusted, being there when times are tough to help give you guidance. And there's not a single company that doesn't do that. I think we've gotten off track in the media industry with brand safety and some of those issues. But I think if we go back to the core of what every business is about, it is about trust. And so to answer your question in a long-winded way, they want to all drive outcomes, which just means increase the level of trust and deliver what their customers.
Now, just a little bit. How do those 34 million small businesses in the US, about 26 million, have no one to replace? Like they're sole providers. They don't have anyone else. So for them, AI will be a massive boost because it's all this stuff they do not do that they know they need to do that will help them too. So whether it's marketing, whether it's accounting, whether it's something else, so a ton of opportunity.
Do you think that there's a fear that by using AI or integrating AI that they might be putting some of the trust with their customers at high risk? Is that perhaps one of the hesitations to adoption? Is there any of that in any of the research or conversations that you're having?
Still a little early, but it kind of depends what the business does. So if you are a hairdresser, AI is going to get in the way. It's going to help you do all the stuff on the back end. It's not cutting people's hair.
Lazy.
Well, yeah. So I might help you with some styles, perhaps. But you're
I remember how Joe Yawoski ended it.
But it will help you do all the back end stuff.
Yeah.
So hit another, it's obvious, but it's worth saying. Small business owners don't usually consider themselves business owners. And what do I mean by that? I mean, if you ask them what they do, they don't tell you I'm a business owner. They'll tell you I'm a hairdresser, I'm a landscaper, and they have a craft. Many of them don't work for big companies or left big companies because they don't want to do the aspect. They don't want to do all the other things that come with having a business. But they learn over time they have to do that, and they do want to do a great job. To your point, they do want to thrive for their families. They do want to make more money. They do want to grow, but they don't see themselves. They see themselves as the craft that they do, which can be many different things.
So if you're offering services to small business owners, the importance here is to remember that they're not, again, for this monolithic category, very much individuals, very much solving for a personal challenge or a personal position, and perhaps really trying to highlight the benefit that AI can unlock in this moment to solve a particular problem.
Yeah, I'll contradict myself a little bit, and not monolithic, but there are certain things that they all need. So most of their, like I say, these are general term that is 34 million, don't do any form of marketing. Not how you would consider marketing. So having a marketing solution for small businesses, only a couple of companies that do that, would be huge, right? And would probably apply to 10 million of customers, right? So now understanding the specific help they need to run their backend will be very big.
One of the things that I've been thinking about is how B2B, how small businesses storytell, and how that's going to change with AI. Not in the can I put something into GPT and help me write a different tagline or something? But actually, in the agentic era, Perplexity put out this thing a little while back that said, we're not going to shop in the way that we want shopped. You're not going to sort of flip through Amazon links. You're going to simply say to Perplexity, go out and find me through products that match what I want, that have good prices, that will be delivered to me in this time period, and it'll go figure it out. It'll come back and suggest something. If the reader of your content as a small business is not a person, but is an LLM or an agent that's summarizing that content, would you tell your story differently? We all, I think about how we tell our stories because we assume it's a worker consuming that story. But if it's filtered through an agent, would you put 1,000 white papers because that the agent's going to summarize that in one particular way versus a simplified story that would be read by a human? And so I think there's a big discussion happening right now on, is the web going to be redesigned as an agent, as the user, not as a human? And I think that will have as big of an impact on how we do any marketing, any storytelling, as anything else in the next year or two.
I mean, you and I were talking a little bit about this last night, and not only that, just the change as you think about who's consuming it, an agent versus a human, but also when you think about so much of our marketing models being built for a display business as well. And if you no longer have web pages which are based on display, but because essentially that sort of model is gone, how do you now also think about from a B2B form to be communicating and what we're ultimately going to use? How does thought leadership change, and how does that sort of branding, how does that storytelling, if that format has moved on, that presents a whole other opportunity and challenge. Those formats have the traditional formats evolved.